This is Eric Eats the World, and today we're making a breakfast from Tunisia in northern Africa. Tunisia is Mediterranean, but it's not quite Mediterranean food. It's North African, but it's not quite North African food. It's a lot spicier, and that's primarily due to the first thing we're making, Harissa, the ubiquitous Tunisian condiment. We're gonna use that to make some Chakchouka. We're gonna eat that with some Tabouna, which is a type of flatbread. So let's get started. So we're gonna start with a harissa. We're gonna start with a couple modifications. Not modifications in what goes into the recipe, but modifications of the quantity. And I think you'll see why in a second. So into our pan, we're adding about 1/8 of a cup of olive oil. And this is over low heat. And to our olive oil, we're adding about 1.5 ounces of tomato paste. We're gonna cook this for a couple minutes. We don't want it brown, we just want it cooked a little bit. Once that's nice and fragrant, we're gonna add our red pepper flakes. That's for 1/4 of a batch. This feels like it's going to hurt. I'm adding 1/4 of a cup of water. I'm also going to toast and grind 1/4 of a teaspoon each of caraway and cumin seeds. It should be noted also that traditional harissa uses black cumin, and we only have access to, I guess it's called green cumin, maybe it's brown, can't tell. It's not black. This is not me making the substitute though, this is other people suggesting that this is the best comparable option. While we're at it, I'm also going to throw in my 1 clove of garlic. Ooh, that's fragrant. Into our pot, we're adding our crushed clove of garlic, our 1/4 cup of toasted and ground cumin and coriander seeds, and a little less than a teaspoon of salt. This is looking a little too thick. I think I'm gonna add some water. We want it to end up as a sauce, so I want it a little bit runny. And I think that'll do. So now we're just gonna cover it. We're gonna let it cook on low for about 10 to 20 minutes until the red pepper starts to break down a little bit, starts to get a little bit soft, and then we'll be ready to set that aside. So the only other thing that we're gonna prepare in advance is our bread. Now you could use a crusty French bread because Tunisia is very heavily influenced by French and Italian cuisine apparently. And while a crusty French bread does seem like it would be delicious to dunk into our Chakchouka, I've made French bread, so I don't really particularly care about making that. I want to make Tabouna, apparently known as taboun in the other regions. This is going to be a traditional flatbread made with some whole wheat, cooked in a very hot oven. It should theoretically be cooked in a very hot clay oven like a tandoori oven, but I don't have one, so I'm going to cook it on a very hot baking stone instead. So let's get started. This promises to be a very sticky recipe though, almost unworkable. And to that I say no thank you. But that doesn't mean we can be entirely hands-off because we need to make sure this is sticky and we don't know how much water it's going to take to get us to sticky. And since I forgot to hit record, I'm just going to tell you what I did. So I started with a 1/2 cup of water and I've got some more reserved. Followed that with 260 grams of all-purpose flour, 65 grams of whole wheat flour, 1 tablespoon of yeast, 1/2 tablespoon of sugar, and 1/2 teaspoon of salt. This I'm just going to let mix. I'm going to judge how sticky it is. I'm going to adjust the water, and then I'm going to let it knead, rest for about an hour. And now our harissa has finished cooking. Looks like the red pepper flakes have started to break down. Maybe that's okay. I don't actually know. Now I'm adding 1/4 of a tablespoon of vinegar, a small amount olive oil. And then we're adding 1 more crushed clove of garlic. Let's see how that tastes. I am admittedly a bit of a baby about spicy food, so we'll see. It's spicy. You can taste the vinegar, you can taste the garlic. It's a little chunky. I do wonder if I could have cooked it for a little bit longer. I'm not sure what the consistency is supposed to be. There's probably only so much these can break down, but I'm going to set it aside in a container and then we're going to wait for this bread to be ready. All right, an hour has passed by and our dough should be ready and sticky. I've got a stone preheating in the oven at 550 degrees. Arguably too sticky. I did have to add a lot more water than was called for though, because with just half a cup, it was basically slightly damp flour. Ooh, I added about 3/4 of a cup after that. So a total of about 1.25 cups. So let's see if I can get that a little bit more workable. And then we're gonna divide it into 6 pieces. Because we are going to need to be able to roll it out and be able to pick it up. To the Tunisian grandmothers out there, I apologize. I feel fairly confident that I have ruined the dough at this point. So I'm going to divide this into 6 pieces. For flatbread, I generally don't care if they're equal. I kind of like the rustic look. I like a little bit of unevenness. Now, working one at a time, I'm going to try my very best to roll this out to about 6 inches. And then, trickier still, I'm going to try and get it off of the counter again so that I can throw it onto our baking stone. But I feel like I've beaten so much air out of this and I've added so much flour that it's difficult to imagine this is going to work as intended. It is rolling fine though. It doesn't recommend that you do this. That's going in the oven for 2 minutes, and then we're going to broil it for about 1.5 minutes, just until it's darkened on top. With our Tabouna complete, we now just have to prepare our ingredients for the Chakchouka. And to prepare for that, we need to do a lot of prep. We've got 4 tomatoes that we need to chop, an entire head of garlic that we're going to mince, 2 bell peppers that we're going to dice, and 2 onions that we're going to chop. So here we go. Oh my God, that was boring. Now over medium heat, I'm gonna add about 2 tablespoons of olive oil. Once that oil is hot, we're gonna add our 2 diced onions and our head of garlic. We're also gonna add about a teaspoon of ground cumin. This time we're not gonna do it ourselves because we're lazy. Once we've got it mixed, we're gonna add our tomatoes and diced pepper. A teaspoon of our harissa, teaspoon of tomato paste, and about a teaspoon of salt. Finally, we're adding 2 bay leaves and a bit of thyme. Not fresh from the garden because it's too hot outside. Now the recipe says to cook until the vegetables are cooked. Not entirely sure what that means, but I want it to be a lot thicker and to look entirely different than it does now because it doesn't look quite like what I pictured. So I'm gonna give this a bit. It's starting to thicken up a little bit. Mildly spicy. Mostly taste onions and garlic. It needs a little bit more salt too. So now I'm gonna try my very best to make 4 indentions, and then working quickly, I'm gonna crack an egg into each of those indentations. That's not working great. I'm just gonna move quickly. So this gets covered and cooked until the egg whites are set. This recipe says it should take about 15 minutes. I don't know if I trust that, but I guess I second guessed the other recipe, so we're gonna keep an eye on it. We're gonna see. So this is Tunisian food. We have our Tabouna, our flatbread, and we've got our Chakchouka made with Harissa. I think there's a rolled R there. I think it's just Harissa. Bread smells okay. It's a very simple dough that I kind of fucked up. Tastes a bit like you would expect. It's very simple, very crusty, very soft inside. You can taste the whole wheat. You can't taste much salt or sugar. Let's try the shakshuka. It's certainly thickened up a lot. I have no idea how to eat this. I'm just gonna keep scooping away. Got nice little pockets though. I only let the eggs go for about 5-6 minutes. I do think they're overcooked though. I wanted a runny yolk. Some of these have runny yolk. Some of that egg. Trying to think of how I feel about it. It's a little bit blander than I wanted. The onions are sweet, and they're the predominant flavor, I think. And then the bell peppers are sweet. So it mostly comes across as sweet, a little oniony, There's garlic in there for sure. There's spice, but there's not, that's maybe too much. There's spice, but there's not quite as much spice as I expected from that first taste of the harissa. And maybe it's expected that you're gonna add more because I think it needs it. Oh. Now it's getting spicier. It's not bad. It's just not quite what I expected. Don't know if I would make, I definitely would not make it again. That was a lot of work. I also don't know what it's actually supposed to taste like though. Even the egg, when you're eating it, you can't really taste it. The other flavors just kind of overwhelm it. But this is Tunisia. What's important is bread and harissa. And those together I like a lot. Even if it's making my nose run a little bit. Ugh. Here in St. Louis, we are starting to see more Chakchouka for breakfast. And in fact, there's a place near us that serves a Tunisian style breakfast, including these, which is what initially prompted this video. Which is good to see because of all the countries, Africa has been the hardest to source ingredients for. I usually have to search online to find anything. Now, would I order Chakchouka now from the restaurant? Probably not. And the chances go down if they offer pancakes. So my summary is, it's okay. I think it's the sauce. I don't think the sauce for this recipe is great. I think if the sauce was different, if it was flavorful, if it was thicker, and I'm sure it is more interesting when it's not me making it without having ever tried it before. It just doesn't feel entirely satisfying either. I don't know if I need a meat, I just feel like I want something more substantial in here than a couple eggs. The harissa is interesting. You got that sourness from the vinegar, you got a lot of bitterness from the peppers, but it's mostly just a heat bomb, which I like. I just don't know what else I would eat it on. And this, I'm pretty sure there's better recipes out there. So this is Tunisian food. This is Eric Eats the World. So thank you for watching.